Hi, I'm Jacob, and this is Jacob Reviews, in which I review tech, household goods, food, and whatever else I feel like reviewing. Today, we're starting out with a sponsored review for the Viwoods AI paper e-ink tablet. This is my second e-ink tablet. You can see it here. I actually used it in preparing the review. Whoops, sorry, it's probably out a little bit. Um, so all my notes are in there. So I won't show the whole tablet itself very often since I'll be using it for notes. And I'll make some comparisons to the last e-ink tablet that I bought, which is the Boox Note Max. I ended up returning that one. Didn't feel like the right fit for me in my use case. And my use case is primarily reading and writing. Two basic things, very common e-ink tablet functionalities. But the writing part is what the real big bump in terms of getting a Kindle or something else like that. Although that said, I read a lot of PDFs, a lot of reports, a lot of scientific papers, and having the larger screen size than a lot of the Kindles offer is really great for that. And that's where I'll start, is the screen size. This is a 10.5-inch screen, so fairly large, not quite at the size of a sheet of paper that you're going to have a standard paper on. And that is what really drew me to the Boox first, was that 13.3-inch screen size. However, that's just not really available anywhere else in the market. There's like one other option that I also didn't love. So the screen size was a compromise for me, but honestly, I found it to be pretty usable. You can often just shrink the paper down a little bit and crop out the margins, and you get a pretty readable one page per screen situation if you're reading like a long PDF paper. Next, we're always looking for resolution. This is 300 pixels per inch, which is honestly seems like industry standard. It looks really good to me. I've had no complaints there. A few other thoughts on the hardware. There are screen button, like capacitive touch buttons across the bottom. There's 3 of them, like a back, home, and an AI button. I'll say that I love the capacitive touch buttons. Just having them there is really nice. They never go away. Certainly on the Boox tablet, I had times when I was like, trying to get that little bottom menu to come up and hit the back button, It was a bit fussy. That said, I wish you could touch the buttons, the capacitive touch buttons with the pen. You do have to use your fingers on them. Sometimes you just have the pen in hand. You want to just tap everything with the pen. Not a huge deal. And then I'd say in terms of the writing experience, that's of course the other big piece here. I did think that the Boox had a little bit of a rougher screen. It's just a little bit more tactile when you're writing on it. Nonetheless, I find the writing experience in this to be really quite good still. It's not laggy at all. Lag is a big issue for any of these sorts of things. And very responsive. Generally enjoy it. And the other killer feature on the stylus that I really love is the eraser. So it does have a built-in eraser, and there's also this button here that you can press to erase. It's pressure sensitive, which I think is maybe a little bit too clever for its own good. So the harder you press on the paper, the bigger the area that you erase. I find this a little bit unpredictable, a little bit hard to use. Maybe if there's some sort of visual indicator, like a little circle of where you're erasing, or something like that, it would be a bit easier. But I do find myself sometimes erasing more than I intend to. Nonetheless, super convenient feature. I've really used it a lot. I end up using the button a lot more than I expected to as well, instead of flipping the whole pen around to do that erasing. Let's see, what else do I have here? Okay, then maybe on to the case, last thing. The case is like also quite nice. Honestly, I just must have been not reading very closely when they told me about the case, because I didn't know it was coming with a case. So I got a case. Love it so far. I really have no substantial complaints about the case. My biggest compliment actually is that this backing, this like sort of suede material, it's really grippy. And that's been a problem for me with some aluminum electronics of the day, the kind of minimalist, smooth physiques that all these iPads and iPhones, tablets, laptops have, is they slide all over the place. Like when I have my laptop in my lap, it just slides around. It's easy to stand up, and it's for your legs not to be flat, and it slides too far, or kind of be curled up on the couch and it slides away. This suede back actually grips really nicely. I was sitting in the park yesterday with my legs crossed, and you can just kind of lay it on your thigh, and it sticks really well. So I kind of doubt that was an intentional feature about the case, but it's a feature that I use about the case anyway. And the whole case is magnetic, just sticks on there. I was pretty pleased with it. It seems decently high quality. I could also imagine a world in which it's just like a really crummy like factory case that's going to fall apart. One last thing I'll say about the case is that I do appreciate that they kept the branding pretty minimal. You can see it just down here on the left. Um, it's just a little Viwoods. It's pretty tasteful. It's a little shiny, but doesn't really jump out. It doesn't dominate the case, and I appreciate that. Paid a lot of money for the thing, and I don't really need to be a huge walking billboard for Viwoods, as much as I am doing a paid review video right now, obviously, as I disclosed right up front. But I am obviously giving a critical and full perspective of my review of the device, rather than just saying positive things and ignoring any downsides of any sort. Excuse me, just getting over a cold. So next, I'll jump a little bit into the software. That was another thing that attracted me to this particular model, was the Android 13 operating system. A lot of these models are surprising. We're currently in, I think, Android 15 or maybe 16. 16 might have just dropped with the new Pixel phones. A lot of these models are running really old Android versions. Personally, I'm not a security guru by an extent, but I do have concern. I would be concerned on the security front whether they're so old that they're not getting security updates. Android 13, relatively new Android operating system, also has the ability to access the Play Store. That was big for me. I'm really not looking for a typewriter replacement. I want everything integrated. I want things that sync up to my other devices. I travel a lot. I hope to travel with this often. It's pretty thin, it's pretty light, but there are certainly going to be times when I'm away from it and I still want to have access to whatever's on there. And that is going to be a big challenge for me software-wise, is like, I really like handwriting my notes, but having them digitized obviously has huge benefits, and I have lots of digital notes, and I want to make sure those two things integrate relatively well, or at least are mutually accessible so I can integrate them as needed. So overall, pleased with that side of the software. They're also pumping out lots of updates. Like right when I got the device, a new update released, and the updates are substantial. They're fixing bugs, they're implementing features requested by the community. It's active development, which I really appreciate, because especially with a device like this, that ultimately is pretty reliant on that original manufacturer software. It's good to see that they're invested in it and hopefully going to be able to support it in the long run, and keep building new features out as well. Because I'll talk about some features where it's like, oh yeah, this would be really beneficial, would really be an upgrade from what's present now. And I'm optimistic they can get them on the roadmap. So to talk in a little bit more detail about the software, you can kind of start at the home screen, and I'll navigate to it here. So here's the home screen. You can see it's sort of divided into 6 quadrants, sextants, I suppose. Sorry about that. And I'll just go through them on the other side here. Up top, you have the paper app, and that's the writing app. And I didn't realize until I did my testing of the Boox Max tablet just how critical that writing app is, because it's really not readily replaceable. I tried out like 6 other Android note-taking apps, and a lot of them just don't work well with e-ink. They're not designed for e-ink. Some of them just didn't detect anything whatsoever. I couldn't even get them working. So that's really important that they have a really strong paper app. And that was my experience, honestly. I've been pleasantly impressed with it. It is not the most feature-rich, which is fine. If you're really looking for a paper typewriter situation, it's like feature-rich. Like, what do you? You barely need any features. You want write and erase. But to my mind, there are a few things that I also want. And then also, really importantly, all that aside, is the user experience and the UX and UI design. And I would say the UX here is much better than the Boox Note Max. Interesting, my impression, I might not be correct here, is that the Boox Note Max was designed for primarily a Chinese market, and then also extended to the American market. And I think there are some UX choices that reflect that. For example, like the concision of Chinese characters makes it much easier to just pack way more features into a small area and still have it be legible to the user. And I think there's also some expectations in terms of the cultural norms around like web and software design that differ between China and the US pretty significantly. So that was a challenge for me on the Boox. The Viwoods paper I found much more accessible. Literally for the Books Note Max, I was finding new features up until the last day, and I spent a lot of time. I spent many hours digging through every menu that I could find, and I was still just finding new things up until the last day. Here, I've had it for about a week, and I feel like I've pretty much got it down, which is great. So it's pretty straightforward for a paper app. It's got all the things you want. You've got undo, erase. It's got nice lasso tools. You can scoop up some text, move it elsewhere. It also integrates with their AI, which I'll kind of get to later. But it has nice optical character recognition, as an old guy like me might call it. They call it like AI text or something like that. One thing I'd love to see in paper that is not here yet is an infinite scroll, infinite zoom, and I say infinite, tongue in cheek here. Right now, you're pretty much limited to the size of the tablet for your writing area, and then you can add another page. I would really appreciate a way to either zoom in, because then effectively you can kind of cheat, right? You can just zoom in and then use a longer part of the screen as like a really skinny, long piece of paper, and or just extend the canvas. That's just such a nice feature, and it's one of those situations where like it can still be very skeuomorphic to paper, but just be one step better. If like, oh yeah, paper, you get to the end and then you gotta get a new sheet. E-ink tablet, you can just add more paper right there, exactly where you want it, continue the drawing or continue the text, continue the idea. So that sort of continuity would be really nice. Similarly, and I hesitate because I'm like, maybe there is a zoom feature and I just haven't quite found it yet, or figured out how it works. I'm like clicking around here. I'm like, there's got to be a zoom feature, right? But I really, if there is, I'm like, yeah, I don't think there's a zoom feature in paper. It maybe they'll correct me and I can add a note to the video later. So that would be a nice addition to paper. And then just going back to the home screen here, most of these apps I just don't use and don't really plan to. There's a calendar app, and that has like integration to daily notes and whatnot. I really want to use this device for focus and my more intellectual work, more so than scheduling and making sure I'm at that next meeting and da. I'll add Google Calendar if I need it. I guess I could sync up with their calendar setup, but I don't know. I'm not really looking for a new calendar software. It's hard for me to imagine like what benefit it's going to give. So I probably won't explore that. Meeting, sort of same thing. I think it's tied to calendar events maybe. I love that idea and that setup. But for me, I already have a whole system I use for that. And anytime, I'm not going to be taking any meetings on this tablet by and large. I suppose like an in-person meeting, but most of my work is remote. Probably a rare feature that I probably won't end up using there. Learning is what they call the reader center, so like reading for PDFs, ebooks, etc. Honestly, also been just pretty impressed with that so far. Pretty pleased with it. I tried out some other e-ink readers like KO Reader. I found the UX there really clunky, a bit hard to use. Didn't integrate with the back button on the Viwoods AI tablet. And getting like the cropping and zooming for PDF pages, I still found clunky, and I'm sure there's like some tricks to figure out there. So I'm not trying to criticize KO Reader. Just wasn't the right fit for me. It was looking for something pretty basic at this point. I will say, full disclosure, I am just waiting to get into the Zotero Android client. They have a native Zotero Android client in beta right now. I'm just waiting, among with many others, to get into the test slots, the limited test slots they have for that client. So I do anticipate that if that goes well, if I do get access to that, I'll pretty much switch over to using the Zotero Android client from the Learning app. But in the meantime, I've been pretty happy with that, although I'm still working out some of the kinks of getting files from Zotero, which is, for context, is a reference manager where you might keep research papers and other reference material to the e-ink tablet. Currently, I'm using this Android app called Zoo for Zotero. Which maybe brings us to the next sextant on the homepage here, which is the apps section. And this is for everything else, right? They kind of have their 5 native apps taking up the other 5 sextants, and then the 6th one is everything else. I will say I have a pretty big complaint on this one. It's driving me a little nutty. Is it automatically reorders the apps to the ones you most recently accessed? here. And this is the home screen most direct way to get to your other apps. And I am using a number of other apps just because, I'm not using all of their, um, sorry, there's some outside noise, all of their native apps. So they have a couple different ones down there, like Google Drive, Firefox, of course. And they always change order every time you use them, which is just really annoying because you're always kind of hunting and pecking. I'd much rather just be in a fixed location and you just click on it. Um, not the biggest deal in the world, but it does seem easy enough to change. I'd love to see like at least an option, if not just switch the default. I just can't imagine that most people are getting a huge benefit out of that. And then finally, the sixth sextant we have here is called picking. It's their screenshot annotation manager. There's supposed to be like a little wheel that comes up in the upper right-hand corner. I might have disabled it somewhere along the way just because I wasn't going to use it initially. I haven't tested that at all. I don't really anticipate taking a lot of screenshots. If I'm going to do annotations, I'm hoping to do that through the Zotero for Android client. That way they'll sync up with Zotero, whereas for my other annotations. Yeah, so I haven't messed with that at all. But that's what brings me to my final significant complaint about the home screen here. Well, I should say there's also like a menu bar on the left that basically has all these same things and some links to other, their mail app. Like I'm just using Gmail. That's familiar to me. It's the same thing I always use, but it has links to their mailbox. I honestly never clicked on this one that I'm clicking on as we speak. It's to their discussion forums. Anyway, so there's also this kind of vertical menu on the left. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Um, and to me, also, it just seems like, yeah, I don't like the home screen layout at all. And I think they should just go right back to like a vanilla Android home screen layout. I honestly am not an Android developer, so I don't know a whole lot about it. But my experience of seeing so many Android devices just run as far as they can from vanilla Android, and my impression is that vanilla Android is just like quite nice. And one should maybe stick with that and just make a handful of tweaks on top of it, or create some like for the home screen. I could easily imagine like they make really nice widgets for their custom apps for their manufacturer Viwood apps, and by default those widgets are added to your home screen. So you could have the same sort of sextant layout here, where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cells, and then if the user, wants to do their own thing, as I do, they can just delete all those widgets. The apps are still there, and they can just add the little app icons where and how they want them, just like you would on your phone, and kind of not have to work around their default workflow if you don't want to. So that would, kind of be best of both worlds, where they have that default workflow where if someone just wants to use it exactly as it is out of box, it's all there. And for a user like me who wants to just change everything and just use it for what I'm using it for and nothing else, they can do that as well. So I'd love just to get rid of this because it seems like a fully customized homepage. And I'd love to see them just go back to something like very vanilla with a few like lighter customizations that are more customizable to the user. Because as I said, the shuffling of the apps every time, that really is an impediment to me. Lastly, to touch on the AI integration, I gotta say, I haven't been super impressed, and I'm not an AI skeptic per se in the least. I am involved tangentially or kind of adjacent to a lot of AI safety work and all sorts of that. But I'm talking more in terms of on the current margin, day to day using AI. I've got Claude and ChatGPT open right now. I use them all the time for all sorts of different tasks. So very happy to see AI integration. But in terms of what they're doing with the Viwoods tablet AI wise, I wouldn't say it's anything to write home about. There's like that's one of the capacitive touch buttons on the bottom right. It just brings you to a ChatGPT window, which to me seems like a waste of a hardware button. And it's like literally like has like AI written on the button. So it's not customizable at all. That's like baked in. Uh, I never use it. I don't anticipate it. ChatGPT is not my e-ink tablet's not where I really anticipate using ChatGPT a lot. Um, and otherwise, the one other place where I actually have used it, it seems like it's broken. So maybe a good bug to flag is the AI text boxes. Like one thing I do love about an e-ink tablet is you can make a text box and then hand write what you want in the text box, and then it'll use AI to recognize the characters and print them as text. I've used it elsewhere. I think like with the lasso tool, for example. So there's two options. You can like make a text box, write in it, and it'll convert it, or you can write, lasso it, and tell it to convert it. That latter one works really well. But the AI text box is completely broken, and I have no idea why. Similarly, like if you go to the Viwood AI app on the capacitive touch button on the bottom right of the screen, um, first of all, there's like a prompt there in the box that you'd write in, uh, and you can literally handwrite in that box, but the prompt doesn't go away, so like it doesn't really feel like it's built for a handwriting experience there. Um, which I do think for an e-ink tablet, like that should be pretty primary, is that like everything works well with handwriting where possible. Um, and I also thought the text recognition was buggy there. So it's kind of weird. I think there's like very good functional text recognition for some features, but then other features that seem functionally identical, they don't seem like there's any reason it should be different or more challenging. The OCR seems really broken. So I don't know what that's about. I'm guessing it's a bug or some sort of issue. Um, okay, so anyway, I ended on a bunch of critical notes there. And my review is definitely not overall critical. I think it's like pretty likely I'll end up keeping it. I am going to go ahead and use the whole 100-day trial that they offer. Um, but yeah, so far I'm much more happy with it than I was with the Boox Note Max. I had just spent hours and hours configuring that and trying to get it all set up and working, and it kind of felt like it went on and on. Whereas here, I'm about a week in, I've put in a couple hours, obviously just getting Wi-Fi, Google Play, all that stuff set up. But I'm already like getting some good productive work out of it, doing some reading and just using the tablet what it's for instead of spending time configuring and getting it working and figuring out what I prefer here and there. So overall, yeah, definitely recommend. I think I've only tried two e-ink tablets. This is definitely the better of the two. And overall, I think it's very likely that I'll keep it. I'll say like 4 out of 5 stars or 3 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5 stars would be my review. Now, mind you, I don't tend to give 5 stars anywhere, so it's got to be really impressive. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. That's my review. Appreciate it.